All right, thank you very much, Natasha, for that. Well, we continue with our rolling coverage as the capturing of votes continues. Currently, capturing stands at roughly 81.5% nationally, with 12 million votes processed. Joining us to dissect the current data is political analyst Dr Levy Ndou, as well as Professor Lesiba. Gentlemen, to the both of you, welcome.
Good evening to you.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, perhaps to just pick up from that interview with Rise Mzansi, where they were speaking to the leader, Songezo Zibi, they have roughly received around 48,000 votes currently. And he says that really at the heart of it, they just wanted to bring issues plaguing South Africa to the fore, that some of the issues they wanted debated are being debated in households, and to them that is enough as a new party, so they're quite satisfied with their showing. Just your take, Dr. Ndou, firstly.
Well, I expected, maybe I'm being unrealistic, I expected a lot from Rise Mzansi, in the sense that they appear to have been a party that had a plan for the 2024 elections. I say so because they have started their campaigns and visiting communities many months before the elections will take place. And they appear to have been appealing to a young constituency, and they also were fishing from where the Democratic Alliance, Action SA and BOSA were fishing from. And even though I expected more from them, I also expected the other parties to lose because of the existence of Rise Mzansi. And I don't think I'm being harsh on them, but I actually expected them to do better. And with only just above 48 votes counted now, I expected more from them. But what can we say? We have got 52 political parties. So if you can manage a seat, half a loaf of bread is better than nothing.
Indeed, it's an important point that you raise around the proliferation of parties that we've seen this time around. Professor Teffo, your take on just that. They're showing, because there are a number of people who believe that they should have gotten more, at least they expected them to do a lot better.
Yeah, perhaps those that expected more were unrealistic, in that there is no way that they come from the stock, the values and the policies that are espoused in the main by the DA. Then you and I can say, but how many parties share same that are on the ballot box and they must share? There is this one particular cake that they must share. So far, according to me, they've done well just to get a seat. The same applies to the Action SA. They are doing fairly better comparatively speaking. But for me, what is critical is that these other parties, led by fairly able, youthful leaders, if I may call that in political terms, is it Mashaba, Sarah Makubela, Zongezo, and Musi Maimane. I still believe, and others of course, if Azanele Mda, had they joined forces, they would have done a lot better. For example, just the independence. How do you expect that you can perform better against the sharks and the seagulls in the sea?
And we've seen that it's been very difficult for them to perform. But now that you're taking us to the Democratic Alliance's performance, I was just speaking to Dr. Mbete now, who said what we're seeing here is a Democratic Alliance that is really doing fairly well for a Democratic Alliance, but unfortunately the multi-party charter members have not had a great showing. It's probably Action SA, but it's still less than what was expected. And what they're saying we're seeing here is the DA having cannibalized these political parties as they were forewarned, because a number of political analysts had stated that they probably can lose their identity to the benefit of the Democratic Alliance.
We can always speculate, and it's within the realm of intellectualism, but there was also an element of opportunism. Right?
All right.
Some of them, they knew they were not going to perform well. But if I can get a seat like Al Jama, I might end up as an executive, or I can even get an executive position, be it in cabinet or at provincial level. There is that element of opportunism that informed them. They knew that some of them, they didn't stand a chance, but they had hoped for one seat. I mean, if it was about the country and not about themselves, surely they should have. I know they are uncomfortable with my statements in this regard, but they equally are appreciative that going forward, they will suffer the same fate if they don't join forces.
Then to bring it to the economic freedom fighters' performance, Dr. Ndou, my colleague Natasha Piri just spoke to the EFF's Floyd Shibambo, and she asked him, are you satisfied with the EFF's performance? He said, yes, we are satisfied. We've maintained 1 million consistently with all elections. So for them, they are quite satisfied with their showing this time around. And he said, really, no one was spared what he would phrase as a tectonic shift in the political landscape. And we would attribute this tectonic shift to the MK Party. Your take on just their position, saying they're satisfied?
I might also sound unfair on the EFF, because in my view, the EFF is a party that has demonstrated to be very much ambitious, that demonstrated that they actually want to run government. There are sentiments that have been raised by the EFF on numerous occasions. One of those is to say that they are a government in waiting. And if they've performed in this manner, in my view, they have not done as expected, not by myself, but by themselves, because they kept on reminding us that they are a government in waiting. Some of the statements that have been made by the leaders of the EFF has been that in a very, very short space of time, they would be becoming a government and dethrone the ANC. But also at the same time, the EFF should be worried about the votes that they've lost in KwaZulu-Natal, and which have went to MK Party. And I know the ANC, the IFP and the DA
have all not
are
been
also
spared.
the victims of losing their votes to the MK Party. That should be worrying. But the positive about all this is that all the opposition parties in South Africa combined have vowed that they want to ensure that they put the ANC under 50%. And that is what the opposition parties in South Africa have collectively achieved. But they have also been assisted by the growing number of other political parties and independents
Which split the vote.
who split the vote, because these are South Africans and you all fighting for votes from the very same people. Whether this is going to bear positive results for our democracy is something that we still have to wait and see.
And that is the conversation we want to get into around coalitions, because they've now dealt with the hegemony of the ANC, an ANC where we just saw a bit earlier on Chair Mantashe interacting with MK member, or at least the daughter of the former President Jacob Zuma Dudu. They had a nice exchange, fairly cordial. They were even sharing laughs there. One wonders if we can read anything into that perhaps the ANC at this point might be looking to perhaps coalesce with the MK Party, given that the former president remains a member of the African National Congress, just merely suspended.
Look, on a serious note, it's unfortunate that in Africa we tend to look at political opponents as enemies. It's that's not how it should be, right? I think he showed maturity, right, to approach the lady and engage, and in his characteristic way. He has been around and about. People have just been making jokes of him and making jokes himself, and which is consistent with who he is. But before we talk coalition, when you invest, you expect dividends. Do you know Zaki Ahmad?
Yes, he got a loan.
He got a loan.
Yes.
And he got even about 7 million rand from a lady who wanted him to win the elections.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to be he spent about 11 million rand alone as an individual, right? And it doesn't look like he will get far. That's one. We spoke about Rise Mzansi. Remember, they got about 20 million rand. Dividends, investment on that,
is
and
the
for one seat.
That is there going to be some sort of accounting beyond this process that we've given you money? But one assumes that the donors were donating just looking to assist democracy, that allow people to participate in our democracy as political parties. One would not think that they really per se wanted return on investment, but to ensure there's greater political participation. We don't hold anyone's brief, of course. We don't speak on behalf of the donors, but one would assume.
But I want to say, those who give the money, they don't expect any returns other than the division and the fragmentation of the black vote. They must question themselves that why we have so many a proliferation of political parties to ridiculous proportions, but they have only two. Therein is a research and a political question that we must interrogate.
Dr.
They
Ndou?
have two parties, and we have over 400 parties, and they are still willing to throw in millions to divide the black vote. There is no way we can go forward with that. But you want to talk coalition? I'm sorry, I diverted.
No, it's good. We digressed into something very important here, that if we're ever going to see a reconfiguration of the political space, do you believe, Dr. Ndou, that we'd ever get to a place where we have a two-party state similar to America, your UK's, or will always continue with this fragmented political space, and somehow these political parties going forward will just have to work together?
The best strategy to avoid that is to encourage and fund South Africans to have as many political parties as possible. If you want to sow divisions amongst the South African population, the best thing is to encourage them to have many political parties so that they cannot speak the same language. And there are people who would say that when you have got so many political parties, it's good for democracy. It's a demonstration of a democratic system. I would agree with them, but that is a strategy to divide South Africans so that they cannot speak with one voice.
And
I say
strong
so
armers.
because
But you are shaking your head aggressively, saying no, this is not the case.
Him and I are speaking the same language. He's saying, right, there are those with vested interests. And there is a big man up there called HF Verwoerd. He's smiling that I was killed by my own because they didn't understand my strategy.
But Dr. Ndou is saying it's for the benefit of the electorate or citizens here in this case, that if they don't speak with one voice, we cannot be strong-armed. They will be each other's keepers. That if there's certain policy position that must be taken, there will be a big debate about the policy position that must be taken. Yes, it probably will take a bit of time when they have to debate some of these issues, but nevertheless, it will always be in the interest of citizens of South Africa.
Let me take it. I'll give you a chance. Let me finish it. Let me, who's doing this for us? Right? Here we are. They have two political parties. You go to Germany, 3 parties. In Britain, 2 parties. In America, 2 parties. And in Botswana, 2-3 parties. In South Africa, we must be encouraged and financed. And say, in the name of democracy, we must have 53 presidential candidates. 53 in a small country. Because the 53 political parties, their leaders, each one sees himself or herself as a potential head of state. Take it, leave is yours.
the point being that if you have got so many political parties, it becomes easy to divide South Africans and they cannot speak with one voice united. So if you look at the manifestos of the different political parties, they don't matter because they speak the same things and they, as I said, they fish from the same pond. So if our leaders are able to stand up and speak the same language in majority, it is easy to have progress in South Africa. But 52 political parties, we can't easily talk of unity in South Africa anymore because we're too much fragmented.
All right.
Now, in the different...
Doctor, unfortunately, we have run out of time. What an interesting conversation. I'm hoping we can still continue it and talk about the proliferation of parties and a number of issues, particularly the coalition. So what could be some of those permutations? But thank you very much, gentlemen.
The last point I wanted to make,
both of you.
political load shedding is what we need.
Political load shedding. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. More news on the other side of this break. Do stay with us.